The village of Caslow was incorporated in 1893. In those days and in decades to come, we were a bustling mining and logging community, bursting at the seams with new enterprises, new residents, and growth. The growth incorporated laneways and streets for horses and buggies, and one of those streets was Water Street. Today, 118 years later, Water Street is still pretty much a horse and buggy artery in the community, even though the horses and buggies are gone. They've been replaced with modern modes of transport, short and long cars, even longer pickup trucks, and campers, motorhomes, and yes, even 72-foot delivery tractor-trailers, which regularly navigate their way through the current maze of the same. Cars, trucks, delivery vehicles, and transport trucks. It's all a far cry from the horse and buggy days of the early 1900s. The following sequence of pictures was taken at random times on random days over the summer, commencing from the 13th of June. That's when Council reduced the vehicular parking space on Water Street, which resulted in the congestion that brings us before this Committee of Village Council today. June 13th of this year, city crews were dispatched to move the concrete barriers into Water Street by a distance of about 12 feet. That resulted in the effective removal of about 5,000 square feet of prime downtown parking space. This was one of the first smaller trucks unloading goods destined for the Caslow Hotel. Things look pretty normal so far. Now the problems begin to show themselves. Here, a regular weekly van cam tractor trailer begins its contortions, backing into a loading dock. Note the tire tracks, which indicate how severely the current barrier placement impedes delivery vehicles. This smaller delivery truck is parked on the 8-foot corridor where deliveries are made and underground utilities could be located at a future date, as funds permit. Meantime, Realtor Seamus McKeating works to remove his vehicle from between two other parked vehicles, but there's a freight truck behind him. This is one of the 72-foot tractor-trailer units, once again destined for the BC Liquor Store. This frame illustrates the space required for such a vehicle once it's in place and the goods begin to be unloaded. The problems become obvious. This picture speaks 1,000 words. Saturdays can be particularly trying for drivers, pedestrians, and vendors at the Caslow Saturday Market. Congestion is sometimes intolerable. The driver of this Dairyland truck experienced a 20-minute workout as he began to make a turn for his Saturday delivery on Water Street. And up the street, major food supplier Cisco begins unloading goods at the Caslow Hotel. Meanwhile, here's a regular vehicle parked behind the bakery, right in front of the no parking signs, and parked on the wrong side of the road. This picture shows a gray, gloomy Thursday morning in Caslow and on Water Street. This snowcap tractor-trailer arrives from the Okanagan, only to find that because the barriers had been moved farther into the street, he was unable to navigate a left turn from 4th Street onto Water Street. The gray van at the right of the screen is legally parked on the owner's property. A small pickup moves west along Water Street, squeezing between a delivery vehicle and a camper. Please observe the trailer hitch on the back of the camper, unmarked and unflagged, protruding into Water Street. Truck driving in Caslow has indeed become a challenge. Distances can be deceiving from the cab of a tractor-trailer rig. Today, Superior Gas comes to town, parks facing west on Water Street, behind the same red car whose owner clearly favors parking where it's marked no parking. This is a typical day on Water Street, but take a look at the pickup at the back of the picture. This is a pretty standard vehicle in town these days, one which took up far less street space prior to the moving of the barriers. Here's a close-up view of a typical day at the western end of Water Street. Meantime, at another spot, two four-legged friends are waiting patiently behind a camper, and a car makes its way by those animals as a liquor store patron looks on. Now, we've spoken of 72-foot tractor trailers previously. This sequence of pictures makes quite a statement, endorsing our request to have the 5,000 square feet of prime parking space returned to parking space. Just another day on Water Street while a couple of drivers chat in the middle of a greatly reduced Water Street. In this frame, you'll note a member of the liquor store's staff, lower left, after she instructs the driver of this delivery truck. She's telling him how to maneuver into place at the loading dock. Now the torture begins for this particular driver. He's hauling a load of liquor, and he commences an intricate backing up into the store. His truck is completely surrounded by stationary, parked vehicles. Two delivery trucks are parked westbound, having managed to get by two kayaks protruding from the rear of the pickup truck and the white Fortis service truck. It's tight even for this subcompact local car, reversing to exit a parking spot. But look carefully. The driver of the maroon pickup cannot exit his parking slot until VanCam leaves the street. Once again, here is a full-size pickup at the same location, and the driver can barely navigate between VanCam and the maroon pickup, which, as we mentioned, is hemmed in. Even on a relatively quiet day, once a delivery truck the size of this Mustang transport rig moves into position, the congestion begins all over again. Lucky for the driver of a small cube van, his vehicle is small enough to squeeze between the trailer and the concrete barriers. After the red car was guided past the delivery truck, Water Street was then blocked to regular-sized traffic. The seniors are enjoying lunch at the Caslow Hotel, and their bus is properly parked at the rear, as is a Zion transport truck, which is offloading on the north side of the street. The driver of this SUV makes an attempt to park behind one of the businesses backing onto Water Street. Once again, liquor store staff members are called to direct a liquor delivery as the driver slowly makes his way into the loading dock, blocking all traffic and creating temporary gridlock on Water Street. Here, kayaks play a role in a preview of the problems which will come this winter. The only difference will be snowmobiles on trailers will replace those kayaks, sticking out into the path of through traffic. Very recently, and once again, the village crew was dispatched early in the day, this time to push the cement barriers at the rear of the Front Street Park back to where they were prior to June the 13th. Tire marks on the wet, freshly graded street indicate the impact of the barriers, which have not been moved back. Could this be an indication the experiment has been a failure? We have a final thought which prompts a return to August 15th. On that date, a full-size pickup was parked directly in front of the no parking sign. The proprietor of the clothes hanger was legally parked behind her business. Another 72-foot tractor trailer was unable to maneuver through the corner of 4th Street and Water Street. The village was called and requested to have the illegally parked truck towed away. The response was simply that the village has no jurisdiction to do this. The problem will only be enhanced if a handicapped parking stall is designated east of this current sign. Apparently, the village has that jurisdiction and has the jurisdiction to move the barriers 12 feet into Water Street. Once upon a time, 118 years ago, Water Street was designated as a street for horse and buggies. Today, it is still designated a street, and today it's still dirt, it's still dusty, and it's still smaller than it was in June, but yet it remains one of the very busiest and limited parking capacity, unsafe for pedestrians and unsafe and unworkable for motorists. We urge the Development Services Committee to exercise pragmatic and practical thought to the redevelopment of Water Street, given the state of the economy and given the perilous state Water Street imposes on its users.